Hey folks, I'm David and this is what I'm thinking. One of the many things that I do is I play guitar, and this is one of my guitars. This is an Epiphone Les Paul, and it is not my only guitar. It's definitely one of my favorites. I love playing it. I love the look of it. I actually got this when my sister was doing accounting work on a show that was sponsored in part by Epiphone Guitars. It was a program on country music television, and they offered the employees a half-off discount on an Epiphone guitar. My sister's not a guitar player, but she contacted me and said, "Hey David, would you be interested in a half-price Epiphone guitar?" And I said, well, I know they make Les Paul models, and a Sunburst Les Paul would be nice. You know, I'm a big Jimmy Page fan, and that's the kind of guitar he played. It'd be neat to have one of those. And she said, well, I can get one and you can pay me back for it. And I said, sounds great. And so a few weeks later it came in and she said, well, it's a beautiful guitar, but I don't think it's quite the kind you asked for. You asked for a Sunburst, and this is a little bit different. They say it's a tobacco burst because that's what they had in stock. And I thought, well, okay. But then I saw it, and I fell in love. However, as some of you may know if you're deep into the guitar world, Epiphone Les Pauls are much less expensive than Gibson Les Pauls. Gibson owns the Epiphone company. But the Epiphone Les Pauls generally have less expensive materials, maybe not quite as fine craftsmanship. The pickups are maybe not quite as good a quality, and some of the metal parts are stamped in a mass production machine rather than finely tooled. And while this guitar looks great, and it played pretty good, I began to think that it'd be nice if I could find a way to do a little bit more with it. So a while back I did some searching and I came across some videos by a Canadian guitar player named Darrell Braun, and I'll have a link to his channel below. I highly recommend you check it out. He seems like a great guy, and he makes some really entertaining and informative videos about different types of guitars, guitar parts, and he does a lot of fun build and modification projects as well. Check it out. I watched one of his videos where he decided to put together the ultimate Epiphone, and he wanted to see if he could do something that would stand up to the best that Gibson had to offer. And I was inspired by this project, and so I decided to modify my Epiphone in much the same way. So I used the same kind of pickups that he did. These are Seymour Duncan P rails. They combine two pickups into one. Typically a Les Paul will have what's called a humbucker pickup, which is two single coils side by side wired in such a way that they cancel the hum that a single coil pickup normally produces. Thus the term humbucking, humbucker pickups. Seymour Duncan P rails are humbuckers that combine a hot rail single coil with a P90 single coil, two different types of single coils that produce different sounds, but they're wired together in a single unit like this to function as a humbucker. I have two of those, two P rails, and as part of the modification I put in new pots, volume and tone pots. These are the volume pots, these are the tone pots for each of the pickups. and because it needed new pots, the ones that came with it were kind of noisy. I also put in a new pickup jack. And the volume pots, when you pull this one out, it isolates the hot rail single coil. When you pull this one up, it isolates the P90 single coil. And when you pull both of them out, it changes the polarity of the single coils from being series to parallel, which changes the tone quality. And you can do all of those combinations with the neck pickup, the bridge pickup, or both pickups operating together. I put in a Graphtec Tune-O-Matic bridge, which has kind of a rubbery type material as opposed to the somewhat sharp and uncomfortable metal bridge fittings for each string. And that has improved the resonance of the bridge as well as making it more comfortable on the hand when muting. This is a Graphtec tusk nut, which is a different kind of material than the relatively cheap plastic that Epiphone uses for the nut. This again improves the resonance and intonation, and it reduces the tension on the strings. It keeps strings from kind of catching in the nut, which affects the intonation and the resonance. And another modification that I made, Darrell did not do this on his project, but I decided to do it on mine, is the string butler. This keeps the strings moving straight through the nut rather than pulling them off to the side, as is typically done with a Les Paul guitar head. By keeping the strings straight all the way through the nut, again, this reduces tension and improves intonation. I also put in some new tuning machines. As you can see, the gears are exposed. They've got kind of a gold look to them. Really snazzy looking. They have kind of that classic keystone shape as opposed to the blander kidney shaped tuning machines that come with a standard Epiphone Les Paul. And I'll have links to all of these where I got them below in the description box. These are hip shot keystone tuners, and they are locking tuners, which makes it really easy to change strings very quickly. I actually broke a string on a show with my band a few weeks ago, and having these locking tuners made it much easier to change strings quickly without slowing down the set too much. I don't have a great amp. It's a small Fender transistor amp. I am saving up to get a tube amp, but I'm going to plug it into my cheap little amp here and let you hear what some of the sounds sound like. So anyway, everyone, I hope you enjoyed my little jam session there, but really fun guitar to play. Now, I didn't do all of these modifications myself. I soon discovered, once I started doing the wiring, that the wiring required for this particular setup was a bit beyond my soldering skills. So I took this to my local Sam Ash music store, not a paid sponsor. I took it to my local Sam Ash music store, and the technician there finished up the project before I risked burning out my pots and pickups with the soldering iron. But it was a fun project. I'm really glad I had the opportunity to do it, and I learned a lot about myself and my guitar in the process. And if you're looking at doing some mods to your Epiphone, this is one that will yield you some good results. These are great pickups by Seymour Duncan, the Seymour Duncan P rails, and they give you a lot of different tones, as you just heard. Even with a pretty cheap amp like the one I'm using, you can hear the tonal variety. It's even better when you've got a high quality tube amp like a Marshall or an Orange. If you want to hear me playing this guitar, I'll have a link down below to my band, The Lost Boys. We've got YouTube videos and some CDs, and you can also find us on Amazon and Spotify. But anyway, and of course I need to thank Darrell Braun, who inspired me to do this project with some of his videos. Please check out his YouTube channel. There's some great stuff on there, and if you're into guitars at all, I'm sure you'll find something there that you'll like. But anyway, this is me with the Les Paul, and we'll see you next time.